Back then, a Catalan nation seemed within reach. In 2017, the Catalan regional government took a risky gamble. It scheduled a referendum to let the people decide whether they wanted to leave Spain. Madrid's reaction was swift, labelling the referendum as unconstitutional and sending police to prevent the voting from taking place. Across Spain, supporters of national unity called for a crackdown on the independence movement. The police used force to keep voters away from polling stations. Marta Rosique is Spain's youngest lawmaker and a staunch separatist. She's been fighting for Catalan independence since childhood. For her, the referendum brings up painful memories.
This was violence committed against Catalans and against democracy. It was also class violence. It was inhuman violence. They treated us as if we were being violent when all we wanted to do was vote. We can't possibly forgive them for that. To this day, the government claims we were violent. To them, violence means wanting to go and vote. Meanwhile, they think that sending police with batons to put down demonstrations isn't violence. It doesn't make any sense.
Despite Madrid's opposition, the Catalan government went ahead. About 90% of voters opted to secede from Spain. But the result was skewed because there was virtually no participation from opponents of independence. Opinion polls suggested that only half of Catalans were in favour of a separate state. Even so, Catalonia's regional president, Carles Puigdemont, declared independence.
As President of Catalonia, I hereby announce the result of the referendum to you and to our citizens. With the mandate of the people, Catalonia will become an independent republic.
But just seconds later, the applause stopped.
The government and I propose that Parliament suspend the consequences of this declaration of independence and begin a mediation dialogue next week, without which there can be no conciliatory solution.
Instead of pushing ahead, the Catalan government called for dialogue. The response was anything but conciliatory. The Spanish government imprisoned Catalan politicians and activists and imposed direct rule on the autonomous region. Puigdemont fled the country. The city of Barcelona is a tourist magnet in northeastern Spain. Among the luxury yachts and the high-rise hotels, a small fishing industry still exists. Agustí Romeo Blanco and David Albiol Català were once ardent supporters of the independence movement.
In the beginning, we took part in all the demonstrations on the 11th of September, Catalonia's national holiday. We were always there, heart and soul. We took our families, sang along, did everything you'd expect. Of course, we were always peaceful. Every year on the 11th of September, we were out on the streets demonstrating.
Agustí Romeo Blanco is especially disappointed that the Catalan government so quickly withdrew the independence declaration in 2017. Like many Catalans, he feels betrayed by the region's political leaders.
The politicians backed down. I don't know if it was out of cowardice or because they had a sense of what was coming, but they must have known beforehand they were going to be punished. They'd already gone so far. People were celebrating in the streets. They should have gone through with it. The consequences would have been the same. They would have been punished. But at least the people would have been given something to keep the illusion going. They would have felt that they had succeeded. The fact that the politicians just gave up is why many people walked away disappointed.
Catalonia is among Spain's most economically strong regions, contributing a fifth of economic output. That's led separatists to believe that the region would be better off on its own. But it's also why Catalonia is so vital to Spain. It seems implausible that Madrid would ever grant independence to the Catalans.
Spain will never allow us to be in favor of independence. They won't even let us hold a referendum because the result still scares them. They'll argue that support for independence has dropped in the polls, but they'll still be afraid of a referendum.
Marta Rosique is on her way to Castelló, Castellón in Spanish, 200 kilometers southwest of Barcelona. The city is in the Valencia region, outside Catalonia's political borders. Despite this, Catalan is also spoken here. In fact, it's been an official language for years. Rosique has come to demonstrate in favour of preserving the language. Under the dictator Franco, speaking Catalan in public was forbidden. Even place names and other proper nouns were translated into Spanish. But since 1979, Catalan has been recognised as an official language once again. Separatists define their would-be nation by its linguistic borders. That means they also lay claim to Valencia and the Balearic Islands, where Catalan dialects are spoken.
Coming together to demonstrate is so important. It shows that the cause we're defending isn't the cause of just a few people, and that we can achieve something if we organize.
With regular demonstrations, activists try to keep the dream of an independent Catalonia alive.
People claim the independence movement has dwindled, but you can't quite say that looking at what we see here in Castelló. It's often harder to get people here excited about the cause, as opposed to in Barcelona or places like Girona.
Independence activists also get support from outside the region, from Catalan politicians living in exile. Sara Dubois Tortajada has come to France to meet with Catalan ex-president Carles Puigdemont, who lives in exile in Belgium. For the activist, Puigdemont is the legitimate president of a free Catalonia. She still has faith in him and his views on independence.
The movement comes from below, and we have to maintain that. That's one of its strengths, and it makes us resilient. We've had 5 lost years without democracy, during which we faced state repression and ceaseless attacks. We wouldn't have survived that if we weren't a grassroots civic movement based on free will and popular engagement.
I'm very grateful to the President. For me, he's the President we should have today. I don't know if I'll ever see a free Catalonia myself, but I'll keep fighting until the end.
But not all people in Catalonia see it that way. About half of them want to remain part of Spain. It's the 12th of October, Spain's national holiday. In the middle of the Catalan capital, Barcelona, people with Spanish flags walk through the streets. Among them are Catalans who clearly oppose independence. Many of the banners being carried are those of the right-wing populist party, Vox. Since the party's founding in 2013, it's made the most of Catalan independence, an ideal issue for the nationalists to rail against. Vox is the third largest party in Spanish parliament. Even in Catalonia, it secured nearly 8% of the vote in regional elections.
Catalonia will never become its own country. Long live Spain!
Opponents of independence aren't just demonstrating. On Catalonia's streets and squares, they're also taking matters into their own hands. This is Tàrrega, 130 kilometres west of Barcelona. Under cover of darkness, anti-independence activists are on the move. They call themselves cleaning brigades. The Estelada, the Catalan independence flag, is ubiquitous around many towns and villages. They want to change that.
The cleaning brigades are groups of citizens who, of their own free will, have decided to come together and clean up all public spaces. We don't hang symbols of our ideology. We don't try to impose our ideology on anyone else. But it's true that we're trying to clean up public places like school buildings, playgrounds, city halls, lampposts, and so on.
Particularly in the countryside, separatism has strong support. Around here, opponents of independence can expect to be greeted with hostility.
When we come up to their balconies, or if a car drives by, they might insult us, throw things at us, or try to attack us. That's happened a couple of times.
The street has to be democratic. It has to belong to everyone. Everyone's free to display whatever symbols they want in their house, but public streets should be free of that.
In fact, the flag with the white star has been banned in public places since 2018. But in many places it remains, hanging in protest against Spain.
When the illegal vote took place on October the 1st, 2017, I realized that I couldn't sit on the sofa and watch them take my country away. They wanted to create a division that didn't exist. So I told myself I had to do something. I asked friends, hey, what can we do to stop these crazy people?
In the square by the town hall, the police are waiting. But that doesn't deter the activists. They want to remove the independence flag from the town hall's balcony. They feel that they're in the right, but the police stop them.
The flag stays on the town hall. I'm going to take that pole from you now. You're not listening to me.
Needless to say, it's an independence flag, and the Supreme Court has clearly said that this flag is a political symbol. just like the yellow ribbon. A city hall is a public facility that we all pay for. It's not allowed to carry political symbolism.
The police take their details, but the activists don't face serious consequences. The self-proclaimed cleaning brigade says its mission was successful. It took down most of the independence flags in the village. This group's leader is Pilar Barrientos. In a secret location outside Barcelona, she receives the spoils of the night's mission. This is one of dozens of warehouses across Catalonia where, for the last 5 years, opponents of independence have stored the objects they seize: flags, ribbons, and signs claiming places to be part of the non-existent Catalan Republic.
The difference between them and us is that we have to act in secret at night, whereas they put the flags back up with the help of the city council and public money.
Pilar Barrientos first joined the brigade because she didn't want to bow to pressure from the separatists.
It was pure harassment. You had to agree completely with their ideas. You were forced to become more and more committed to independence. A yellow scarf here, yellow underpants there, yellow socks, and on and on. I don't like anything yellow anymore. And it used to be my favorite color. Then they said to me that I didn't understand, that it was a matter of feeling. But you can't govern a state with feelings. We need a clear legal system. Feelings. And what if I feel differently tomorrow? Feelings, what rubbish.
Not every opponent of independence is on the political right, but the separatist movement has proved the ideal bogeyman for Spain's far-right politicians. They're exploiting the issue for their own ends. Madrid, the 20th of November. The fascist Falange party marks the anniversary of the death of its founder. The Falange was the only party during Franco's dictatorship. These days it's small and hasn't had electoral success. But it's still legal and allowed to hold public gatherings.
Today we commemorate our founder, José Antonio Primo de Rivera, on the first anniversary of his assassination. He said that dialectics were good as the first means of communication, but that when justice and the fatherland were in danger, there was no argumentation except that of fists and pistols. Every decent Spanish person should be against all the separatist scum that want to destroy Spain's sacred national unity.
Recently, the government in Madrid has been reaching out to Catalans, passing a law that could see separatist leaders getting lighter sentences. But that's outraged the right, while the separatists say it doesn't go far enough. They're insisting on a referendum. Amid this heated debate about the future of Catalonia, moderate voices risk getting drowned out. Here in Barcelona, artist Odon Ventura Ruiz is beginning his day.
I moved to Barcelona as a student. It was a time when my whole world opened up, a time of freedom, of meeting new people, and of studying at university.
Odon Ventura Ruiz lives in Poble Sec, a former working-class neighbourhood in the centre of the city.
Lots of different people live here. Many of them are locals, but there are also lots of immigrants. So you might see a separatist flag on the second floor and a Spanish flag on the third floor. People coexist here. They know how to get along with each other.
He identifies strongly as Catalan, and the divisiveness in his homeland worries him.
For me, the day independence was unilaterally declared was a painful day. I could see that things were moving more and more quickly in a direction that would only cause problems.
Separatists derisively refer to people like Ventura as equidistantes, people without a position.
It was a difficult time, especially for people like me, who are neither for nor against independence. I didn't think it was the right time or the right method. Nobody explained to us what it would mean to be independent.
The Catalan leadership never formulated a concrete plan for a path to independence or for Catalonia's economic or political future. For supporters of independence, vague promises of freedom were enough.
The only thing we knew for sure was that there would be an economic crisis. And the truth is that people of my generation had already been through a lot of crises. So I felt that it was time to focus on other things. At a time when Europe has done away with its borders, when we all have the same currency, is that the moment to create smaller, closed-off territories? And yet, that doesn't mean we don't have to fight for our identity, our language, and our traditions. I don't know. I don't know. For me, the issue of independence was never really important. But for others, it was an existential need. It's in their blood. They don't want to be part of Spain. They can't be part of Spain. That's the root of the problem. These people don't understand that Catalonia is as much mine as theirs. They have to convince me as someone who's between the yes and the no. If the majority votes for independence, then I'll fight for it. I mean, I'll help to achieve it. The problem is that it won't be that easy. You can't achieve independence if you only have the support of 50% of the population. That would be a disaster.
It's summer solstice in the Pyrenees Mountains. Odon Ventura Ruiz has come back to his home village to celebrate. In mountain communities, the solstice is celebrated with a night of fire. The tradition dates back to pagan times, when people believed the fire would drive away demons. Under Franco, the ritual was banned and, like so many other Catalan traditions, disappeared.
Beautiful. They're running down.
I've known this since childhood, but not my early childhood. For a long time it was lost. We couldn't do it. It was forbidden. It should never have been outlawed. But it's come back, and today it's spectacular.
For Odon Ventura Ruiz, the night is also about the hope for reconciliation.
Yes, I do have hope. I hope that Catalan society will understand that whatever we want to achieve, we can only do it together.
In this region of rich history and tradition, the future hangs in the balance. Bridging the divide between those who support and those who oppose independence is a major challenge. One that will have huge implications, both for Catalonia and all of Spain.
What people have to say matters to us. That's why we listen to their stories. Reporter, every weekend on DW.
Hey guys, it's Evelyn Sharma. Welcome to my podcast, Love Matters, where I invite celebrities, influencers, and experts to talk about all things love, sex, and dating in India today. Nothing's off limits. Let's discuss all these things and more in the new season of the podcast. So make sure to tune in wherever you get your podcasts and join the conversation, because you know it, love matters.
Will we we become superhuman soon, with the help of computer chips implanted in our brains. Elon Musk bets on that idea. His company Neuralink was recently granted permission to test such devices on humans. Another future technology in the testing phase are flying cars. Companies worldwide are in a tight race to get their models prepared for the market. When will we be ready to take off? But first, fake reviews on online marketplaces seem to get out of control. What does that mean for us users? A 5-star rating is a pretty good reason to buy something online, right? Well, unfortunately, many reviews on Amazon and other online marketplaces are fake. That's bad news for anyone who relies on these ratings. So, what's being done against fake reviews and how can you spot them? Fake reviews. Without a doubt, 4- and 5-star reviews are clutch for any company wishing to sell their products. And faking those ratings is a welcome tool to trick customers into making bad calls, like buying poor quality products. And the reality? Dodgy and desperate sellers are paying for glowing reviews, and they even commission false negative reviews on competing products. Fake reviews are a huge market and a massive problem for platforms and customers. If you're planning on using TripAdvisor to book your next holiday, take note. The travel site says it identified and removed 1.3 million fake reviews in 2022. And watch out for the army of fakers when shopping online. Fake reviews are produced by millions of click workers all over the world. Only last year, Amazon reported more than 23,000 social media groups worldwide dedicated to writing fake reviews, with over 46 million members and followers. Who writes these fake reviews? These reviews have to be convincing, of course. If users recognize fakes, then the seller loses out. That's why these ratings are mostly written by individuals for now, and not bots. Fake review brokers target potential writers via social media, and especially in Facebook groups. They pay them to write positive reviews after buying a product and returning it. And they offer them outrageous bargains on products if they give them a good rating. Once they've created a network of writers, they offer review packages to online sellers on so-called review farms. To give you a rough idea on how it all works, prices vary greatly, but you can get a review for as little as €2. That is indeed not very much if you consider the click workers have to order goods, write their review, and then send it back to get their refund in most cases. Apart from being more than ethically questionable, this also has ecological consequences. Unwanted goods are being shipped around the world only to potentially get destroyed after being returned. Online sellers who want a bigger impact on their overall rating mostly buy review packages. We found an offer for a pack of 100 positive reviews for €180. This amount of top ratings can significantly improve a product's overall user score and thus make it more visible in online searches. This leads to market distortion and makes it extremely difficult for consumers to compare products online. And these writers are pretty good at their job too. It's fairly hard to spot fake reviews. Most brokers ask their writers to browse organically by clicking on related products, marking other reviews as helpful, adding photos and videos, and writing reviews of 300 words or more. And what's worse, legally, review farms are acting in a gray area. In most countries, there's no framework that makes the buying, selling, and placing of fake reviews subject to criminal enforcement. How can AI help? Amazon, the world's biggest online retailer, claims it is doubling down on its efforts to tackle the problem. And in order to do this, they say they have improved their AI tools. Amazon's detective AI does what it does best. It analyzes the data and then offers conclusions. The AI will look at the review writer's relationship with other online accounts, their sign-in activity, review history, and any unusual behavior. Thanks to the detective AI, Amazon says it was able to block over 200 million suspected fake reviews last year. Still, consumer organizations argue online retailers are not doing enough and that joint efforts between governments and private stakeholders are needed on an international level. How can you spot fake reviews? The overwhelming majority of these fakes are either 5-star or 1-star reviews. So you're more likely to find legitimate reviews in the middle. Sneaky fake reviewers might also award 4 stars rather than the full 5, but no one is paying for 2 or 3-star reviews. Apart from that, these red flags to spot a fake review have proven efficient in the past. Reviews are rather vague and not very detailed. Generic titles like great product or awesome are common in fakes. Competitors' products are mentioned. Many fake reviews have similar wording, as well as spelling or grammar mistakes. One-star reviews that mention small flaws, which really aren't that bad. Have you ever bought a dodgy product with high ratings? Or are you more skeptical when a product gets high praise on online marketplaces? Let us know. A paralyzed man can walk again, thanks to a revolutionary chip in his brain. What else could be possible with brain-computer interfaces, or short BCIs? Typing mails only using your thoughts, or even save your memories and replay them at any time. Well, some of this is already possible, and if you ask Elon Musk, the sky's the limit. His startup Neuralink has recently been cleared to test their brain chips on, or more accurately, in humans. But how do these devices even work? To put it simply, BCIs are connected to your brain, either from outside or inside your skull. Electrodes communicate with the neurons in your brain and monitor their signals. These signals are then processed by an algorithm and turned into commands. In other words, the BCI translates your thoughts. With a chip like that, you can, for example, operate computers or smartphones, you could play video games or prepare a presentation for work without using your hands. Or imagine a conversation without speaking and instead communicating by reading each other's thoughts. And these devices could also monitor your health and warn you of the risk of a heart attack, for example. If you think this sounds like science fiction, you're not entirely wrong. Everyday uses of BCIs like these are still up in the air. However, they are not too far-fetched for today's tech. In the medical field, brain-computer interfaces are already tested on humans with great success. BCIs helping people with disabilities. Being able to use a computer could be a real game changer for paralyzed people. Recently, researchers from Switzerland even made it possible for a paralyzed man to walk again. They implanted 2 devices into the patient's body, one in the head and the other one on his spinal cord. These implants communicate wirelessly. The patient's movement intentions are picked up by the brain device and then decoded in real time through algorithms based on adaptive artificial intelligence. The intentions are then converted into electrical stimulation of the spinal cord. This activates the leg muscles, which then move. The device allows this man to stand, walk, and even climb stairs again. How else could this tech be used? If it's possible to decode signals from the brain, then the other direction is also thinkable. Stimulating the brain with external commands can create even more applications. This method is called deep brain stimulation. For example, Neuralink is exploring tech to make blind people see again. Signals of a camera could be converted into stimulation to allow blind people to get a picture of their surroundings. Using BCIs, researchers can potentially also recognize signals of epileptic seizures and in turn send stimulation to prevent them. There are also high hopes when it comes to treating neurological conditions such as depression, schizophrenia, or addiction. However, there are some concerns when it comes to BCIs. The procedure of implanting a chip into your brain bears the risk of severely damaging it. Translating thoughts also raises questions about data safety. How and where is data recorded from your brain stored? And what could tech companies do with it? Just imagine targeted ads based on your private thoughts. Would you let Elon Musk into your brain? Let us know. Have you ever been stuck in traffic and wished you could just fly off? Many people are working on making that fantasy a reality. A startup from India is developing a flying taxi. A Brazilian company aims to launch their model by 2026. A German startup wants to ferry people at the Paris Olympics next year. And a SpaceX-backed company has been granted permission to test flights with what they call the first fully functional flying car. So, who will be the first to be ready for takeoff? Remember? The Back to the Future movies envisioned flying cars by 2015. Well, it's about time to invent them, don't you think? But are flying cars really the future? What does this all mean for average car drivers? And aren't the vehicles that are being developed just hyped up helicopters? Let's break it down. Several air taxi companies are targeting 2024 or 2025 to start their operations. The Vertical Flight Society estimates that there are over 700 different designs for electric vertical takeoff and landing aircrafts, or eVTOLs, from nearly 350 companies worldwide. How exactly air taxis will be integrated into our cities is still a work in progress. So far, no manufacturer has received permission to operate. Designs, of course, vary from company to company. Some have wings, some don't. And others are even supposed to fly and roam the streets. This concept by a SpaceX-backed startup just got approved for test flights in the US. However, what they all have in common is using rotors to lift them off the ground. Fair enough. But why not just use an already existing helicopter? Let's take a look at the advantages of EV tolls. Urban helicopter services like Blade have already been in use for quite some time. While these are mostly for the super rich, EV tolls are seen as more suitable for the masses. Here's why. Other than helicopters, which run on fuel, most flying cars operate with electric motors. These are cheaper to operate and maintain, which brings the price down for customers. EV tolls are also quieter than helicopters and thus more suitable for flying in urban areas. And because they don't emit carbon dioxide, they are more eco-friendly. In places like New York City or Hanoi, they could help to minimize traffic congestion. This reduces emissions and makes urban travel smoother. So I guess the only question that's left is, will I be able to use flying cars? Well, that depends. To get a personal flying car in the next few years is highly unlikely, unless you've got 100 grand lying around. A Swedish startup almost sold out their entire pre-sale inventory of EV tolls to customers all over the world at a price of around 90,000 euro per piece. The company expects to deliver the vehicles by 2024. But air taxi services might be within reach for more people. Different companies are projecting the price to be between 2 and 10 euros per kilometer. However, experts warn that these projections might be unrealistic due to high production costs. The number of flights and passengers would need to be consistently high. And then there's some doubt if flying cars are really eco-friendly. Setting up the necessary infrastructure for takeoff and landing could consume huge amounts of resources. And the vehicles would have to run only on green energy to make them sustainable. But I, for one, would love to use an air taxi instead of being stuck in traffic. What about you? That's it from me. Which topic did you find most interesting? Let us know. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you soon.
Eco India. Joshimat is in danger. This little Himalayan town is being slowly swallowed up by the earth, sinking into cracks that keep widening every day, with dire consequences for its residents. What's causing Joshimat to sink?
Eco India. In 30 minutes on DW.
I want to have the same freedom in my own country and chant for my own freedom.
Discover stories that could change your life. Just a click away. Find our best documentaries on YouTube. See the world as you've never seen it before.
I'm ready.
Subscribe now to DW Documentary.
Stopping climate change. That's what they're aiming for.
Several zones of the Earth will become literally uninhabitable.
Today we're talking about a few million refugees. In the future we're talking about billions.
It's no longer a question of whether we get out of coal, oil and gas, but when.
A film about commitment and hope. About visions and the people behind them.
We want to achieve rethinking in society.
Averting catastrophe, climate change. Starts July 13th on DW.
This is DW News coming to you live from Berlin. NATO allies assemble in Vilnius for a summit which Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is due to attend. NATO's chief says he's confident the allies will circle around a vision for Ukraine becoming a member. Also, after a year of negotiations, a path opens up for Sweden to join the alliance. Also coming up, Israel launches nationwide protests as the country's parliament advances a bill limiting the powers of the Supreme Court. The move has sparked widespread demonstrations in recent weeks across the country and fueled a long-running political crisis. Hello, I'm Terry Martin. Good to have you with us. The leaders of NATO member states are meeting in Lithuania today for a historic summit where they're expected to lay out a path for Ukraine to join the alliance. While leaders arrive for a two-day summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed he will be taking part in the summit, but said he was displeased with the absence of a clear time frame for his country's membership. The NATO gathering has started with fresh momentum after Hungary said its ratification of Sweden's NATO bid is now only a technical question. Well, speaking at a forum before the official start of the summit, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said he welcomed Turkey's decision to forward Sweden's accession bid to its parliament for ratification.
This summit is an historic summit because we have already made an agreement that ensures that Sweden will become a full-fledged member of the alliance. And this is good for Sweden, it is good for Turkey, it's good for the whole NATO alliance, and not least it's good for the Baltic region, for Lithuania and the other countries in this region.
So Turkey will stop blocking Sweden's bid to join NATO. I asked DW Brussels Bureau Chief Alexander von Namen, who's covering the summit, what happened to make Ankara change its mind.
Well, why did it happen is, at least according to Turkish officials, that President Erdogan got what he needed. They are celebrating their president for his negotiating skills. But when you look at the concessions that Mr. Erdogan was able to receive, you would say, well, they don't seem to be such a big deal. Let's have a look at Sweden. They have promised to work even more closer together with Turkey on counter-terrorism. But we should not expect them to extradite any activists that are considered by Turkey as terrorists without a due process, without a court decision. They have also promised to back Turkey when it comes to the country's EU aspirations. And that is also what Germany is saying, that they want to support Turkey, that they want to back their aspirations. However, it's not likely that the EU is going to restart accession talks immediately, because for that we would need to see some progress on the ground in Turkey when it comes to the rule of law or the functioning of democratic institutions. So, as you see, those concessions, what has been negotiated here, it doesn't seem like a big deal. However, all the concessions seem to show support for the Turkish president, and that is probably what he wanted to achieve here.
Okay, so Turkey has come around and Sweden's path to NATO accession has been cleared, but what about Ukraine? What options are NATO leaders discussing, Alexandra, regarding Ukraine's roadmap for membership?
Well, we know that Ukraine would like to get such a roadmap to NATO membership. They want to have a clear perspective. But for NATO allies, it is important to be on the same side here, to be united. And what we are hearing from our sources is that in the final communique, in the final summit declaration, we can expect them probably to say that Ukraine's place is in NATO. But they are also expected to say that when the war is over, it's up to Ukraine and NATO allies to decide, to agree whether all the needed conditions are met, and only after that NATO allies will invite Ukraine to join the alliance. So we see some carefully tailored language here, and that is not what Ukraine wants. They want a timetable, they want a clear perspective, and that is why the Ukrainian President Zelensky is tweeting that he is not happy with the current state of discussions here in Vilnius.
Another big topic for this summit, if there wasn't enough already, is NATO's plans for strengthening its eastern flank. Russia's aggression has given that great urgency. What's on the table there in Vilnius?
Well, we expect NATO leaders to approve those plans officially here in Vilnius. And of course, it is urgent to have more ships, more planes, more troops on NATO's eastern flank. Germany alone has already announced that they are going to station a whole brigade in Lithuania when the conditions on the ground are met, when the infrastructure is built for those troops. And we are going to see more troops deployed to the eastern flank. NATO wants to put 300,000 troops on high alert, that troops that could be deployed within 30 days to defend every inch of NATO territory. However, NATO is also saying this number is aspirational. We don't know. We don't have this number of troops at our disposal right now. So that is a big issue here. And of course, another big issue is that to implement those plans, you need to invest more in troops, in Navy, in other forces, and that is also what is here on the agenda in Vilnius.
DW's Alexander van Namen in Vilnius. Thank you very much. Clearly, there's a lot at stake for Ukraine at this NATO summit, and the country's president is planning to attend in person. But on Twitter, Volodymyr Zelensky said the signals he's been getting from NATO are, quote, absurd. I asked DW's Nick Conley in Kiev and asked him what Zelensky was referring to.
Well, Terry, this is about the fact that we believe it seems like the NATO leaders are still arguing about how to formulate an invitation for Ukraine to join rather than actual membership as such. So that's just an air raid alert going off right now. There is an air raid alert across the whole of the country at present. I think the real frustration and fear here in Ukraine is that right now, while this missile danger is so present for Ukraine, while civilians are dying every day here in this country, that the people who oppose Ukraine's NATO membership are kind of dressing up their resistance to Ukrainian membership through concerns about corruption or governance, and are trying to basically kick this down the can to a time when, if the military action on the battlefield is frozen or somehow contained, they can then basically kill off this idea in future. There is a real worry here in Ukraine that this is not about reforms, about governance, that this is just an attempt to basically hide their refusal to let Ukraine in the club. And in that message, President Zelensky went on to say that this kind of ambiguity, leaving this question open, is just going to make things more dangerous. He has made it clear time and time again that he believes that as soon as NATO makes that commitment to Ukraine, that basically the Russian danger is off the cards, that countries like Germany that are maybe reluctant to let Ukraine in the club would not have to defend Ukraine, because Russia, for all its love of risk and kind of aggressive foreign policy, is not suicidal and wouldn't in the end try and attack Ukraine if it were in NATO.
Well, there's some important background to this, of course, Nick, which you know very well. In 2008, Ukraine was told by NATO leaders in an official declaration that it, quote, will join the alliance. Now, 15 years later, its membership is still under discussion. How do Ukrainians feel about that, Nick?
Well, certainly that is seen as the kind of cardinal sin, as a kind of crucial moment of Western weakness here, something that people here believe encouraged Vladimir Putin. He just fought a war against Georgia in 2007 and had basically recognized the supposed independence of two breakaway Georgian regions that are seen as, by Ukraine as basically being Russian proxies. Then in 2014, Crimea, basically the sanctions were not much more than a slap on the wrist. So there's a real sense that this fear of Russian escalation has just encouraged Vladimir Putin, and that now we could see a similar kind of pattern. Countries like Germany, but also the US to an extent, very unwilling to go the last step beyond providing Ukraine with weapons, to actually take Ukraine into the Western club and to basically make a kind of line in the sand in this part of the world and say, this is the West, this is Europe, and we are going to stand up for Ukraine. There's also kind of hurt pride here in Ukraine. People here will tell you that Ukraine is actually, yes, it is a recipient of a large amount of Western support, financial and military, but it's also doing the West's work for it. And if it weren't for Ukraine and its willingness to stand up to Russian troops, then NATO would be having to put in a lot more money and a lot more effort along its eastern flank.
Nick, thank you very much. That was our correspondent in Kiev, Nick Conley. Now to Israel, where protests have erupted across the country after its parliament, the Knesset, voted in favor of a controversial bill that limits the powers of the Supreme Court. Demonstrators waved Israeli flags and were chanting slogans against the move. Protesters blocked several roads in major cities. Police have made several arrests. The decision to cut down the court's power has led to months of protests by the opponents who call it an attack on democracy. The amendment won't come into force until it passes 2 more parliamentary votes. Our correspondent Tanya Kramer is covering this story for us from Jerusalem. I spoke to her a short while ago. She told us more about the ongoing protests.
Well, just some time ago, there was a huge demonstration here, and this is what's happening, as you said, all day since the early morning. The protesters call this